track and field is a sport where they don't really pay you all that much to go out there and do it. That is not an opinion, it is a fact. So many things have happened this past week, not so much on the track, but specifically conversations off of it, that I decided that you deserve to know the truth about what's going on. You might have heard some rumblings about international free agency, things like Turkey paying for athletes, not just Jamaicans. There's also a Nigerian athlete, Favor Ofili. I'll get to that in a moment. But beyond that, when we talk about money, Grand Slam track is the only thing that changed from the time that I first made a series focused on the pay in track and field. Like, that was almost 2 years ago now. Like, that's the only thing that changed between then and now. Because the Grand Slam track was supposed to pay a whole bunch of money to their athletes. I've already shared a lot of my thoughts on it. No need to go back on it now. I'm just going to focus on the new information that we have. Because when we talk about money, there's been conversations as well. Some things are coming out about the money situation with Grand Slam track. And hey, I'm not going to go say what you can find in a video that I'll just link in the description below. Because the Coffee Club boys, they share their opinions on what's happening with the money and how, things are playing out with the league. But we also had interviews. Noah Lyles did an interview with the Sports Business Journal. And then Michael Johnson did an interview with the Sports Business Journal. And they basically talked back and forth. Not directly, but responded in some degree to each other. And after all that, there's an Olympic athlete who's caught in the middle of all of this. Because Daniel Roberts competed in Grand Slam track. He's also the Olympic silver medalist in the 110 hurdles. But he had a very unique money situation, which is why I'm going to choose to start there. Once again, I apologize in advance because this is one of those videos that I originally had no intentions on doing. Yeah, I know I've said it before and I'm saying it again. So things might be a little discombobulated. And if it is, I apologize in advance like I said. But if you stick around to the end, then I definitely know that you're a real one. So let's just hop into it. Daniel Roberts isn't just an Olympic silver medalist in the 110 hurdles. I'm just rattling this off from memory. We are living in a world where Grant Holloway is the best short hurdler, both indoors and outdoors, and it's really not close. That did not just start when he was a pro. It didn't just start at the World Championships, the Olympics, or anything like that. And he did get an Olympic silver medal if you go back to 2021. Like, that's one of the blips on, like, his, his career. But he basically won every gold medal between then, like when he leaves college, and now. When you go back to college even, we're talking about championship meets. The only other time, aside from the 2021 Olympic Games, that Grant Holloway, as far as I know, lost a championship in the short hurdles, that was to Daniel Roberts, because they both competed in the SEC at the exact same time. Daniel Roberts is also an American champion, which obviously is a pretty big deal. That man, again, reigning Olympic silver medalist, was dropped by his sponsor, and he's now sharing more information publicly about it. But for a while, nobody really knew what was going on, because Daniel Roberts was at Grand Slam track, and he was wearing a Nike uniform. But I did pick up on the fact that he wasn't wearing one of the newer Nike kits. Again, the reason why I bring this up is that nothing actually happened to Daniel Roberts between winning the 110 hurdles silver medal at the Olympic Games, again, the pinnacle of the sport, and the moment where we find out he's not running for Nike, or at least he finds out first and then, has to go out there and compete. He's been living, like, going off of, prize money, earnings, winnings. Like, that's how he's been doing it since they dropped him. And Daniel Roberts is in a better place than most athletes because guess what? He was signed to Grand Slam track as a racer, not a challenger, which means he got base pay, so many other things involved. He was also competing on the Diamond League while he was running with GST. That's his situation. But if an athlete like that, again, an Olympic silver medalist individually, because we know there were relay gold medalists who got dropped, like Bryce Deadman. I'm not here to get into, I'm not trying to bash a company or a situation like that. But when we say the pay in track and field is trash, it's not a joke. Nobody's just making it up. So when you have high school, college athletes and everybody focused on how they can be Olympians and they can be pros, like, there are so many hundreds of thousands of athletes just in America who want to be at the highest level in the sport. Like, that's just what's actually happening. You have so many athletes who really want to be at that level, but right now, pro track and field doesn't really have much for you. No shade, just being honest. If being a pro is actually a thing, if it is, it's primarily about being under a sponsor. Which brings me now to the whole Sports Business Journal article or interview. It's really an interview where, again, I'll link it in the description below. And shout out to Anderson Emerald of The Final Leg. He's already, shared some of that on his channel. In the interview, because, hey, there's 2 interviews. You got Noah on one end, and you got Michael Johnson on the other. Noah is talking about, well, of course he had to talk about Grand Slam track and how it's not coming back for LA. And, he had his opinions because he was skeptical from the jump. But he also recognizes that Grand Slam track was filling a void. So he was pretty respectful in that regard, where this is not a win. It's not a win for the league, but it's not a win for track and field, for Grand Slam track to do anything other than be successful. We need spaces where track athletes, track and field athletes, everybody in the ecosystem can go out there and make money. And for a long time, the Diamond League and the Continental Tour has really been the only option, and they just don't pay that well. Again, no shade, just being honest. The only athletes who can make, the athletes who can make real money from competing on that circuit are athletes who don't need it. Noah Lyles was talking to Sports Business Journal primarily about a bunch of other stuff that's not track. Let this sink in. On one end, you've got Daniel Roberts, who's running consistently, because that's the only way he gets paid, because he doesn't have a major apparel sponsor. He doesn't have big social media followings or anything like that. Whatever he has on social is likely there because he's actually good at the sport, and that's it. And then you have Noah Lyles, who literally hasn't competed in a legitimate pro race outdoors this entire season because he doesn't need to. Yes, I'm sure injury stuff has happened, but fundamentally it's really not a big deal because you have athletes who, when they are injured, still go back out there because they have no choice in the matter. If they want to make money, that's what they're going to have to do. Noah Lyles was trying to expand his brand. And if we listen to him, I'm trying to understand the world that he's living in, where since he's maxed out the winning that you really can accomplish in the sport, at least tangibly in any one moment, it's really going to come down to brand expansion if he wants to do anything financially. That's it. So Noah Lyles is more or less a running influencer or a track and field influencer, more than he is actually a track and field athlete. Yes, track and field is the thing that got our attention, but he's trying to hold it doing a whole bunch of other stuff. That is not a plan that everybody can join in on. Actually, most athletes. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say it really doesn't matter what Noah Lyles does away from the track if he wasn't first fast enough to get our attention on it. Noah Lyles wasn't just in the races. He wasn't just making Team USA. He was winning gold medal after gold medal after gold medal. That is how he got to this reputation. Ultimately, what Noah Lyles is saying, I think Noah Lyles makes very correct assessments about what's going on in track and field. He said the sport needs help, not necessarily saving. We can play semantics depending on how you feel about the words, but I think most of the pro athletes, those who are quote unquote not competing in college anymore, whether you're unsigned or signed, that's not important. If you're pulling up to USA's, not competing in college, just using that group for example, you are basically a pro athlete. At least you have that professional approach to the sport and professional level talent. The amount of opportunities to make money in the sport are very low. And Noah said it himself. It's the reason why he wants to expand his brand. He's talking about, conversations with Carmelo Anthony and maybe, having his own wine or, champagne and, maybe, using that when he celebrates winning a race one day. That's where his mind is. How can I build a brand? Because track and field itself, he made enough comments to say that track and field itself is highly limiting when it comes to that. So how do we fix it? Well, that's where Michael Johnson comes in. Because Michael Johnson addresses that Grand Slam track could have been the solution to that problem. It could have been the space. It could have been, and maybe it still will be, the space where the athletes get together and we now have a platform. I'm going to step aside for a moment because when Michael Johnson is talking, he addresses, one, that the league is going to have a future. And like I said, the Coffee Club boys made a whole bunch of comments about some of the things they understand about the money situation. At the end of the day, the cat's out the bag. We do know enough information now that money was the primary issue that slowed up and, ended the Grand Slam track season prematurely. Money was the reason. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. And I'm Coach Rob, and if you really want to know what's going on with the fastest athletes in the world, then you are in the right place. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. They were spending a lot of money, clearly, in order to get the league to the point that it was. We had entertaining competitions and we got that far. But Noah Lyles wasn't there. So when he says to Noah, hey, let me respond to you, he openly responds, and again, I'll link it in the description below, where he's like, hey, Noah, you do realize that, you say you wanted a bigger track and field platform. We could have been that platform. Well, to be honest, Michael Johnson isn't lying. Just no shade, just being honest. But the Grand Slam track model, I'm going to say this part. For the slams to really hit, and be everything that they're capable of being, the track and field community does need to get on board. And considering that it's primarily going to be the track side of that, then that means you really need those people to get on board. And yes, I'm talking about the athletes. So whatever you got to do in order to make that happen for the current structure, that's beyond, for me to discuss. But Noah said something else that he responds to. And what he's really addressing is the fastest man in the world label. The comment section, you can let me know how you feel about it. But I do understand that the fastest man in the world label has typically been given to whoever wins the Olympic gold medal in the 100, to a lesser degree, the world championships in that same event. But when it comes to marketability, whether you get a shoe, all of that stuff, Michael Johnson leans in on the statement that you probably are going to struggle to market yourself when your primary stage only occurs once every 4 years. So track and field needs a stage that occurs on a regular basis, on an annual basis, and certainly not, even more than just once a year. You need multiple points on the calendar for people to actually visually see you. That title, fastest man in the world, is a title that should be earned and held and defended. That I agree with. And if Grand Slam track can get to a place where, for the professionals, the ones who actually call themselves that is what we're doing, that is what we're professing. But see, everybody has to get on board with it, because the Olympics have been on a pedestal, and the world's to a lesser degree. Where that lands us is that the athletes train for that one moment. So Daniel Roberts did everything that he was supposed to do, going all the way back to that situation. They told him, this is the big moment. You're supposed to perform on that stage. So he did. All the other races didn't really matter. He got to the games and got a medal when he was there, and still lost his professional sponsorship or everything that comes along with that. But he did everything you told him to. So clearly, this whole walking billboard approach, where there's a difference between wearing Nike shoes and playing for an actual team, and then being Nike. You see the difference? Track athletes don't just wear Nike. They are Nike. They go to the meet and it literally says Nike next to their name. They don't have an actual team. They don't have an affiliation that goes beyond that. The label that comes from Adidas, Nike, or whoever is their identity. So when that goes away, it's sort of like you become a nobody, or at least the general framework is that to some degree, you've lost some respect. The back and forth between both of them and what we need to do to move the sport forward, I think what we're seeing is two different conclusions. Because Noah wants the sport to move forward. I think he kind of got tired of waiting. He's like, I'm going to make sure I move forward, and we'll see how the rest of that goes. Michael Johnson is trying to move the sport forward the best way he knows how. The difference is he can't do it without everybody getting involved, including Noah Lyles. And now, after everything I just said, let's get to the international free agency situation, which obviously is related to all of this. Because if track athletes are professionals, because again, the whole amateur pro thing, what makes you a pro? Right now it's basically just, labeling and do you have a pro sponsor and are you a walking billboard? That's technically what divides a pro from one who's not. So you got athletes who are fast, who don't have a pro sponsorship with a shoe deal that, pays them out directly. And I guess some people just credit them as not pros, just for that one fact. But moving on. Jamaica, which everybody knows on the world stage for their world and Olympic success, they do track and field seriously, some of their athletes have now decided to transition over to competing for Turkey, because Turkey decided that they were going to put up, as far as I know, about $500,000 upfront guaranteed for you to transition there and then get opportunities to make more money by winning medals for them. So you've had jumpers, we've had other field event, throwers and so on who've moved over. I don't know all too much about the athletes on the track who may have transitioned, but we do know this much, that Jamaica isn't the only one. Favor Ofili of Nigeria is also transitioning to Turkey. And depending on who you ask, some people are like, hey, how can you switch your nationality? And like, oh, this is terrible. But if what we're doing out here is pro track, is all focused on worlds and Olympics, then you're going to have to figure out how to make money from that. Because being a walking billboard, we've tried that already. For most athletes, that doesn't go so well. If you're not in a high profile event and climb to the top of it, when I say high profile, I'm basically talking about the 100 if we're talking about the sprints. That event means more than the rest of them. Once we get to the hurdles, forget about it. It's really hard to make money in the hurdles. Daniel Roberts can tell you that. And to build a brand on that. Even Grant Holloway, as dominant as he is, he does not do well in as far as like trending in the media and the algorithm, whatever you want to call it. No shade, just being honest. People don't really care that he's that good at the hurdles. If he took that level of dominance, put it in perspective, Grant Holloway, if you moved it over to the 100 and the 200, that level of dominance would be better than anything that we're seeing on the world stage. Better than Kashane, better than Noah, better than Litsile, better than all of them. So obviously, again, you don't have to open his mouth, you don't have to do an interview or nothing. If you go that fast and win that many medals, that dominantly, indoors and outdoors, people are going to pay attention. Again, just swap out the 110 hurdles and insert the 100. That's the conversation we'd be having. So because track and field is in the current state that it's in, I get it. I see why athletes are trying to figure out how to make money whichever way that they could. Do you know how hard it is to actually make $500,000 in an entire track career? Especially from actually competing. Like, the people who, again, the athlete, what happens in the sport is the few athletes who do have success, like real success, and build a brand, they get larger than the sport, where there's no real amount of money you're going to pay them to go out there and compete. At this moment, if you are in that select few, you're not competing anymore for money, like not from an actual track. If you are competing, you're just competing for reputation. Noah Lyles, Sha'Carri Richardson, like these types of athletes, reputation is the reason why they go out there. People view them as the best, therefore they have to go defend it. And they only got to defend it when you think it matters. So if the world thinks, like the track and field world, says the world championship meet is what matters, then forget about all the rest of these races. I mean, you can pay them for an appearance fee if you want to, but you're probably not going to get the best out of them unless they think they need that race realistically to prepare for the one thing that people want to watch. This money situation in the sport, like, you can't fix the problem if you don't first admit that you have one. After all of this, again, international free agency, athletes getting dropped from their sponsors after getting medals, you know, the GST money situation, which that's a loaded discussion. I'm not even getting into all the details. You can just do your own research there. I mean, all of this. I mean, William walking billboards, trying to expand your brand. Maybe even get champagne if you're Noah Lyles. Whatever it is, it all tracks back to money. The pay in track and field is trash. But it's not going to get better if you keep expecting it to come from international sports federations. Sorry to tell you, that's not their job. The IAAF, World Athletics, they do their job very well for what it actually is. They host international competitions. That's what they do. And it works really well. And they even get amazing athletes to show up and compete, and we get great track and field competition as a result. That's what it is. They do their job very well. They're not trying to create a professional sports league. It wasn't in the bylaws, it was never a goal, and it doesn't look like that's what they achieved either. Eventually, what evolved is an amateur sport, because these are amateur events, with professional athletes in it. And those pro athletes who show up to their event make that stage work. The issue is those same pro athletes don't go anywhere else, at least nowhere else that people actually follow them. Gilbert Arenas, of all people, who's a former NBA player, he said it himself with the whole Noah Lyles, should you have a sneaker debate? He was like, Noah, you know what we really need to do? We need to have, I don't know, like a league, like a place for us to go see you, a place where we could clock you, where we could know week to week, month to month, where are you gonna be so we can watch you do what you do? Because Gilbert Arenas can't discredit Noah Lyles' talent anymore. Most of the NBA community doesn't like Noah Lyles because of their disconnect with things he said. But one thing that they can't say is that that man is not good on the track. Josh Hart, who plays for the New York Knicks, He said it himself on a podcast. He was like, I was rooting for Noah Lyles to lose. But after he wins that 100, I was just like, you know what, man? You got that. You did your thing out there. This is coming from an NBA player who, again, wasn't really on that side because of the whole back and forth. So when Gilbert Arenas says what we need is a league, everybody should be able to figure out that the man is right. Coming from a basketball player who's looking out and acknowledging, you know what? The talent is there. The talent is there. That's not the debate anymore. Don't matter what these events are. We just have to figure out the package to sell it. If you're happy with the Diamond League package for what it is, as a fan, shout out to you. You're probably not American, as far as I can tell. But if you're happy with that, that's fine. But for all the track and field athletes, especially the ones who are American, a nation that contributes very heavily to the medal count in sprints and the hurdles, just saying. If that's who you are, you had better hope that Grand Slam track or somebody else figures this thing out. Because for you to be this good and not be able to make real money, and the only way you can is to hand that power away to a apparel sponsor that really doesn't care that much about track and field, to be honest, because Nike, Adidas, and everybody else makes so much more money from other endeavors than from sponsoring track and field athletes. You had better hope we figure this thing out. Either that, or maybe you should put in a call to Turkey, because as far as I can tell, they seem to pay a whole lot for track and field athletes, and that's that. In the sport of track and field, confidence is everything, because when you win, that is just the moment when everybody else finds out what you already knew to be true, that fast is a lifestyle. Get your fast is a lifestyle track and field gear at scarecruiting.com/shop, or use the link in the description below. It's a huge support to me and this channel, so I can continue to make you more content like this. And remember, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.